I'm Emily Marinelli, and you're listening to the Twin Peaks Tattoo Podcast. I'm a professor of psychology, a psychotherapist, a writer on 25 Years Later website, and a huge Twin Peaks fan. I'm not a tattoo artist or tattoo expert by any means, but I'm a tattoo enthusiast and wanted to make a podcast combining two things I love the most. Each episode of the Twin Peaks Tattoo Podcast interviews someone about their Twin Peaks tattoo and explores what their ink means to them. Thanks for joining. On this bonus episode of Season 2 of the Twin Peaks Tattoo Podcast, I speak with my colleague and soul friend, Anna Benassi. Anna and I teach together in San Francisco. We've both created and we both teach graduate-level psychology classes based on pop culture that we love. I teach Between Two Worlds, Depth Psychology and Twin Peaks, which examines Twin Peaks from a depth psychology lens. And Anna teaches the psychology of Harry Potter, which we're going to hear more about today. While they do not have a Twin Peaks tattoo, I know, why don't they though? They do have other meaningful ink that we will also talk about. Anna Benassi, they, them, is a licensed psychotherapist with a private practice that spans the SF Bay Area and is a professor at California Institute of Integral Studies. They identify as an activist, storyteller, and visual artist. They teach psychology classes with a bent on pop culture, poetry, and art. They are an Aquarian, an avid cook, I can attest to that, and practicing Buddhist. Here is the Gryffindor magic of Anna. Hi, welcome to the Twin Peaks Tattoo Podcast. I'm so glad to see you today.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. That's fantastic.
You're welcome. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself and your identities.
Wow. So I identify as, I want to call myself a mutt, multicultural, biracial. My father was Indigenous Mexican and my mother was Scottish Irish, and put me up for adoption when I was born. So I was in foster care. And then I was adopted by Italians. So I have this really rich multicultural background. And I'm non-binary and I'm queer. I feel like I'm all the things in a way. I'm a pretty big melting pot of identities.
Why are you a Gryffindor?
Am I a Gryffindor? Well, I like to say I'm a Gryffindor with a wing of the dark side here of Slytherin, a Slytherin wing. Because I think I had the same experience that Harry had. I thought, oh my God, am I a Slytherin? But I really wanted to be a Gryffindor. And I really realized, no, I think I'm a Gryffindor. I try to do the right thing. I feel fairly, brave. And for me, like brave means being scared out of your mind, but doing it anyway. Mm-hmm. There's been many examples of my life. I've been scared out of my mind and I've done it anyway. And, I'm a little bit of an idealist about, dream the impossible dream, fight, the foe kind of thing, be the hero of your own life. So that's why I'm a Gryffindor, and all of the quizzes that you take for Harry Potter always has me as a Gryffindor. So I think I'm on the right Gryffindor path.
Well, also it sounds like identifying a little bit with Harry, who also had that thing of like, am I Slytherin and am I a Gryffindor?
Yeah, he was an orphan. Right. He was an orphan. And we talk a lot about that in the class, about his journey and how it formed his attachment style. And that, that's my way of, I can teach attachment theory through the characters and all that. So yeah, his journey of he had an evil force to fight that was constantly trying to kill him. I didn't have that, thank goodness. But, like everybody, I'm on the quest to live my life to the fullest and to my potential. And so that has definitely been my hero's journey for sure.
That's such a great answer. I love that. We'll talk more about the class, but tell us how you decided to become a psychotherapist. How did that journey happen for you?
Oh, wow. Well, I've always been fascinated with people. That is definitely for sure. When I was a kid, when we had those phones with the cord that comes like mounted to the wall that can wrap around your whole house and the kitchen and stuff.
Totally.
I always remember being on the phone, on the floor And my mom would walk by several times and she said, you don't talk much. I said, yes, because I'm listening. I'm listening to my friends. So, I mean, I started, very young, just like trying to be a good friend and try to be a good listener. And I'm just fascinated with people. And then I think I think I can think of two really monumental things that I think got me. Well, there's many, but the two I want to talk about. When I was about 15, I was trying to read through the library. I don't know if anyone ever did that, the library geeks, where you want to try to read everything in the library. I decided with like two books from the alphabet, and I got as far as the P's. And I wrote, so that was in psychology, and I picked up the dissertation of Abraham Maslow, which talked about self-actualization.
Mm-hmm.
I was blown away because it was like, oh, we have the potential to change, which I was like struggling with at the time, thinking that I was just stuck as, the way I was, describing myself and thinking I wasn't very smart and all these things, very critical. And then when I read about all the things in self-actualization, the hierarchy of needs, all this kind of stuff, and all the famous people who, he identified as self-actualized, I got really excited. And I thought, how geeky is this to be reading a dissertation at the age of 15 and also
Yeah.
having it impact my life in such a monumental way. And then it really kind of did get me on that journey of like, oh, how do I become self-actualized? And I had this like torch to my ass. And then the second big event was when I came out, which was really rough. It was really, really rough. And my parents put me into therapy. And that therapist really changed my life. Actually, I credit him with saving my life. And I thought to myself, wow, I'd like to have this kind of impact on people. This person had a monumental impact. This would be really cool to be able to help people to this level.
Mm.
So that got me on the track. And then I had another therapist who said to me pretty like, you really should be a therapist. And it's like, I don't know. I was running the time going, I don't know if I can do it. It sounds so scary. Maybe it's like a therapist. Um, so those really are some of the reasons. I think, a lot of my life experience and just being very curious about how people tick and being
Mm-hmm.
just endlessly fascinating to this day about, how people function and what
Mm-hmm.
they're about. And it's just an endless curiosity I have with people and connecting with people that I really enjoy doing that. So that got me on the road. I mean, I wish I'd gotten on the road to psychotherapy sooner, but I had all these things that were pretty loud. I was reading all the self-help books you could possibly read from, the point of, when I read Abraham Maslow on, it was just there. I just couldn't see it for a while. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I love you sharing about reading through the library. I know we've talked about that before, but that's like one of my favorite things that you've ever told me. Just thinking about you as a kid doing that. And I identify with that. And this relates to like what we're talking around pop culture is like some of the ways in which I survived my childhood were through books, through movies too, and through TV, but also getting lost in imaginary places and just different times and the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and like going through there and just it's really important that we have those like outlets and finding ourselves reflected through pop culture that way.
I mean, imagination. I mean, that's the big thing that kept me going as a kid. It's like I had this juniper bush fort that I made up characters and I hid in there, and I remember reading the Never Ending Story, which I
Mm.
just the Never Ending Story. Like
Yeah.
I just loved that book, and I was just like, oh God, and so that how story can sustain us and keep us
Mhm.
going, especially, being a queer kid who felt like different and they didn't belong.
Totally. I know.
Pop culture was just, saved me. And I read, you know, endlessly. My mom gave me all these romance novels. So I felt like I could travel the world. I fell in love with Australia through reading Lucy Walker books. And so, yeah, just being transported was so helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Tell us about the kind of therapy that you practice and like who are your clients and what kind of work do you do?
Well, I um, like to say I see folks who say, hey, I look like, your average person, but I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I don't belong. I can't, I don't know who I am yet. I don't know who I am. Who am I going to be when I grow up? Um, so kind of folks who have this internal rebel or internal part that needs support coming out. So I see all kinds of people, individuals, couples, families, groups. Um, I see a lot of poly families or polycules. So non-traditional, or what I like to call modern families. I love, love, love that. Um, yeah, so with any kind of problem that anxiety, trauma, these developmental stages of transitioning from like having being a parent and then empty nest, going through menopause, end of life. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of existential stuff, which is really like, again, an echo of my own life. I've always been chewing on, who am I and why am I here and what am I going to do with my life? So I tend to attract those same kind of people. And I enjoy very much working with them. And I have a lot of different modalities I pull from. Gestalt therapy is probably a foundational therapy, which is really about being humanistic, which again ties back to Abraham Maslow.
Mm, nice
And,
through line.
say again?
I said nice through line. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maslow coming back in.
Yes, Maslow coming back in and is really meeting people where they're at in the present moment. So this is where my
Mm-hmm.
Buddhist practice comes in, moment to moment awareness, and trying to increase people's awareness so they can make choices in their life about change or acceptance. And you can't get nowhere without awareness in that model. So that's like my foundational model. And then neurobiology, like neurobiology of attachment, like how are we wired for connection, love?
Mm-hmm.
That is a real interest of mine. Um, all the different types of modalities of couples therapy. There's a million of them. I don't know if I want to go through all of them. So yeah, all of that. I mean, I pull a little bit from psychodynamics, but more from like that depth way that you do as well, and
Mm-hmm.
liberation psychology, and I use a lot of art and a lot of whatever works, right?
Yeah.
Whatever people can connect with.
Yeah.
I, had a client that was very much like a Star Trek episode. We just talked in metaphor the entire time. Or I had one client, we talked a lot using poems,
Mm.
and there's a lot of poem fragments as interventions when I'm talking to clients. Clients are down on themselves or critical, and I said, hey, you don't have to be good. You don't have to crawl on your knees 1,000 miles through the desert repenting. You
Mary
don't have to
Oliver.
love what the wild animal of your body loves, which is a poem
Mm.
fragment from Mary Oliver, Wild Geese.
Mm.
So I use things like that, whatever people can connect with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes people can connect with, Harry Potter metaphors or Star Trek or the latest show that they're watching. Um, yeah, so um, I like to use also, sand tray figurines.
Mm-hmm.
My office, I have quite a few. And if people want to, hold a figurine for like, support, or they want to do a little like sand tray, sculpture, they can. So whatever artistic thing that we can use, sometimes drawing. I used to have clay in my office at one point. So clients do clay as they were talking. So whatever supports the work.
Yeah, and I love all of those interventions too, are just ways of being with someone that go outside of just traditional talk therapy, right? I mean, I think one of the things we do and that we teach is how important it is to be integral and holistic and just think outside of that old paradigm of, you know, the client is talking and we're just sitting and listening and saying nothing in return, right? Like it's just like we're a blank screen with no feelings and we're not people, we're not humans. Like we are humans, we are people. We do love poetry. We do love Star Trek. Well, you love Star Trek. I've never really seen Star Trek, but like what we
Scandal.
can whatever is needed in the metaphor, whatever people relate to. And so when my clients are like watching something, like recently everyone was watching The Bear, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen The Bear. I need to watch The Bear
Yeah.
because they're relating it to their lives. And I think it's a responsibility I have. And also, of course, I want to watch any show that is fun and interesting and relevant. But when my clients are resoundingly, a lot of them are watching The Bear and relating to addiction and dysfunctional family systems that are showing up in that TV show, I want to be able to have that language to meet my clients where they're at with it and go deeper into the metaphor. And I think that's like some of the ways that like weaving in pop culture into our work, our clinical work, but also into the classroom is critical.
Well, yeah, I mean, even in trauma work, right? Finding anchors. We talk about anchors, which like
Mm-hmm.
are the breath or your safe place. But I like using pop culture icons for anchors, and
Mm,
people really dig it.
mm,
So it could be Batman or Spider-Man or Dumbledore. Um,
mm-hmm.
even though you don't know these things or they're imaginary, right? You identify with them, you know their whole backstory, you know all you can about these characters. They become a resource and an anchor for you. And if
Yeah.
you're into that, why not use it
Mm-hmm.
as an anchor? I think everything's on the table to help us. And if we can draw from Fawkes the Phoenix from Harry Potter as an anchor, well, why not? And I like to tell when I teach um, you know, upcoming grad students to want to be therapists, I said, don't be a flat rock. Don't just sit there and not move.
Mm-hmm.
You know, be engaged.
Yes.
With boundaries, of course, but
Yeah.
you can bring your authenticity because, like, the poetry thing for me just happened because I love poetry,
Mm-hmm.
and I just spontaneously, started quoting stuff. You're a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. Like I just start, like, and
Yeah.
then, started to stick. And so that's because I'm being myself. So how
Mm-hmm.
do I be myself? Of course, in my therapist role with boundaries, but bringing in all this great stuff that I love and that people
Totally.
can relate to.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, and one of the things that you said about anchors, I personally can relate to that in some of the trauma work I've done as a client where, I've had like a therapist working with me around having like spirit guides to help set me through an anchor. It's a similar thing, right? And who are they? And for me, it was my grandmother. It was my pup who had passed, Goldie. And then she was like, well, and maybe think of a third. It's nice to have them in threes. Who's your third of your guide who's going to help you through this hard moment? And I was like, oh, it's Dwayne the Rock Johnson. She was like, perfect. That's a perfect one to add into the mix. So now every time I'm having a hard moment and I go back to that anchor play, those spirit guides, I think of all three of them. And it's really funny because here's my little grandma, here's my tiny dog, who's like a Chihuahua dachshund mix. And then there's Dwayne the Rock Johnson. But they're the perfect trio that I need, right? And so it's just like, it's always been a huge part of my life since when I was a child. And I believe in bringing it in as part of myself authentically in sessions with clients too, and always in the classroom. So in the classroom too, if I'm teaching psychodynamics or family therapy or whatever, I'm having them look at movies with families in them and then imagining that that family is your client and how you would work with that. It's a deeper meaning making than sort of a, imagination is great too, but there's something about being able to work with quote unquote real people, real characters going through real experiences and needing support through them.
Well, I first want to respond to, Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Did you see Jumanji? You watched him in Jumanji?
Of course, and the sequel, the Jumanji
Oh yeah,
Jumanji sequel.
I because I
Oh my
love
god.
that because he's embodying a kid
Uh-huh.
and being wrong. I mean, there's so many layers to that. I mean, we can spend the whole time talking just about that movie, but yes, about how to use these characters who are having real struggles,
Mm-hmm.
and how to identify and connect that to helping your clients or your clients pulling from them. I love that that was one of your anchors. People have picked all kinds of things over the years that when I've done that intervention as well, and it's a great one. It's
Mm-hmm.
really a great one.
It is. Um, so it's clear that you love Harry Potter and that you love psychology. What drew you to create this class? How did you get that class going? Tell us about the class.
Well, I feel embarrassed for how many times I've read Harry Potter, but I've used Harry Potter really as an anchor for me to go to sleep at times too. It's been something that's been soothing to me when I've had a stressful day and I can't shut off my mind. I'll listen, I've listened to the books, and it helps me go to sleep because I know how the story goes, so I'm not feeling like, oh, I have to stay awake. And there's something about listening to, and sometimes I hear little bits and pieces that either I've forgotten or I didn't it
Mm.
really, land on, which always is like a little delight.
Mm.
Um, so there's that, but so it kind of came out of a party where my roommate was like, "Hey, you got to help me figure out, you know, should I date this person or not?" And I said, "Well, why don't we put him through some kind of questionnaire?" And I thought, well, Harry Potter, let's put him through a Harry Potter questionnaire. And I ended up
Genius.
using that questionnaire with, other therapists and working with kids. And stuff like, what's your favorite character, of course? What character would you like to be? Which I think is a
Mm.
difference. What's
Uh-huh.
your favorite potion or spell? And then
Mm.
there's one question is really, really personal is what would you see if you looked into the mirror of Erised? And you have to be a Potterhead to know what that means. So it's this mirror that tells you your deepest desire. And so that's a really
Mm.
personal
That's a
question.
big
So
question. Yeah.
so we did the questionnaire with this one prospective girlfriend, and they failed like horribly. Just the way they were answering, and was like it was ironic because it told my roommates like, wow, they're not very. It showed some level of selfishness. I can't even remember now.
Mhm.
Um, and then we did it again with the next prospective girlfriend, and aced it.
Oh, good.
Excited, they were like they had answers. They were so then I started really writing down the list of questions and how could I use this with people if it comes up, right?
Mm.
And then also, um, when I started teaching couples therapy, I thought about the attachment styles, and I thought, I wonder what attachment styles Harry, Ron, Hermione have. And
Love
so
it.
there was actually somebody wrote a book on it.
Wait, really? Wait, what's the book?
I'd have to look it up, but it was
Okay.
like the attachment styles of Harry Potter. I think something
Oh,
like
okay. Perfect.
something about, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of books, psychological books written about Harry
Mm.
Potter. So
Mm,
there was that
cool.
as well. So I started talking a lot about Harry Potter starting to seep into all these different things, and I thought, well, heck, I might as well, do a class. And I got excited about when I started thinking, how would I teach this? And then, of course, this was right when at the time, and I know this is one of your questions for me around J.K. Rowling and her transphobia
Totally. Yeah.
comments.
Like,
So I
how do
got
you
a lot.
reconcile that, right? Like,
Yeah,
what the, yeah.
that
Hmm.
was hard. That was hard. I got a lot of stuff on Facebook like, how dare you teach this? And this is wounding. And,
Yeah.
I thought about the dead author theory that do we throw out the works because the author is a jerk? And,
Hmm.
I have gotten so much out of Harry Potter, but I was crushed being a non-binary person. I was crushed that she took that stance. And
Yeah.
to me, it shows like, hey, she's definitely, human. She's definitely got some wounding. How do I, so my way of reconciling is like, I'm not spending a dime more on J.K. Rowling. I'm not going to movies. I'm not buying any stuff. I'm
Hmm.
not, people give me stuff all the time, but I've told people, hey, start giving me Harry Potter stuff because I really actually don't want to promote and put any more money in her
Support
pocket.
her.
I mean, she's
Yeah.
ridiculously rich. I don't, what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Totally.
how do I take a stance on not promoting that, and yet how do I keep my love for the story alive?
Hmm.
Right? It is a paradox. It is a polarity that I've had to work on. Do I not do I throw all this away because of this person? Then I would think I'd have to throw out most art that I love.
Hmm.
So, but it's been a hard one. It's been a hard one to reconcile. So that's the first class. We talk about how do we reconcile this? How do
You
we
start
reconcile?
from the beginning with that, just to set the
That's the first
stage.
class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what do we think
Yeah.
of
That's
J.K.
great.
Rowling? What the
Yeah.
heck? What's
Hmm.
going on with her? Like, what's wrong? What's wrong
Hmm.
with her that she's taking this stance?
Yeah.
Obviously, something is there. I mean, we don't know because we can't sit down and talk to her. She gets very defensive. Of course, and you have millions of people just saying, hey, you should, um, jump off a cliff or whatever comments she gets. She's gotten very hostile about it.
Mm.
But yeah, so we talk about how do you reconcile that? How do you, and it's still I think an ongoing conversation. It's I don't want to say it's killed my love for Harry Potter, but it's sobered it. It's taken the
Mm.
a little bit of the magic away from me, if I have to say. It's like, wow, this person who can create this is incredible world. But then I weigh out like, wow, it's like it gets into all these moral questions. Do you like this person? Sparks promoted reading like nobody else, especially with the dumbing down of people's cognitive functioning. She promoted reading more than anybody. And, you know, so, but then how do I reconcile this transphobic thing that has hurt, you know, my trans friends and whatnot? So that's again an ongoing question and a really hard one for me. But I feel like if people are interested and they want to learn through these stories, then it's worth the diving into the polarity. It's worth a contradiction because there is contradiction here for sure.
Yeah, and you know, this is thank you for saying all that. And this is very different in the world of Twin Peaks, but you know, there's the world of Twin Peaks, historically the show is incredibly white, right?
Yeah,
And it's basically these two white cis het men who've created this show and these storylines, a lot of which involve like indigenous wisdom of the Pacific Northwest and the specific area. So there's a lot of problems and there's a lot of great articles that are, you know, great critical theory around this. And um, certainly an essay in the Women of Lynch book that I use for the class goes into that. So we spend a lot of time sort of talking about a lot of problematic things in the show, including a character who ends up who's a white cis woman who ends up playing a Japanese man, and it's just like there's a lot of trouble in the show, but
yeah,
like we have to bring that in, not just have it be on the periphery or like you know oh we'll just it yeah it's a very white show, but anyway back to Twin Peaks, it's like no, it has to be integral to the conversation. Like you can't go into any of the depth places without that social justice liberation analysis of any of it. For me in the class, for me in
absolutely.
general, for me as a human in the world, for me as a clinician, just it's like it's got to be centered those conversations. But also, do can I love and appreciate the art? Can I be okay with the fact that in the return, which is basically season 3 of Twin Peaks, that there's, you know, basically one black woman and she plays a sex worker, not that there's anything wrong with sex work, but that she's limited to that and that she has a very small role, even though actually her role is really critical. Anyway, I'm not trying to ruin this for you because I know you haven't seen it yet, and you and I are going to watch Twin Peaks together. But just to say, how do I reconcile that? I can still love the art, but loving the art to me is about never losing my critical eye on all of that, on all the landscape of the show and the art that comes from the show. So, you know, being part of the Twin Peaks community, we make a lot of art around the show. I have this podcast, people write books, people write articles, people do all kinds of things, play music, but are we doing all of those things with a critical eye, a critical lens, with our love, both at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, you can't gloss it over, and it's about life itself. This is, you can't avoid these issues in life. How could we try to avoid them in art and pop culture?
Exactly. Thank
In
you.
Harry Potter, there's several things. All the characters of color are secondary characters, right? So I really loved when the play came out, the Cursed Child play. They cast Hermione as black, as you know, and so, and there was a big scandal about that, and then J.K. Rowling said, why would you just interpret that this character would be white? So I thought that was a great discussion about that, and
Right.
we had a discussion in the class around
Mm.
uh, really, it felt like, you know, the sublimation of these characters, that they were, you know, whether they there just to make it look like it was being, you know, inclusive, or was it just pat, you know, was it just like, oh, I'm just going to do this just to, you know, and, or just did it really show J.K. Rowling's unconscious bias?
Hmm.
So,
Good questions.
and so it's always an ongoing discussion. It's not just like, oh, we talk about J.K. Rowling's trans stuff once, um, and that's it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm looking at my Harry Potter shelf. So yeah, it's Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I have a screenplay on my thing.
Of course you
Um,
do. Cute.
so yeah, so it's just an ongoing, because you're gonna run into this all the time. And if you want to be a multiculturally oriented therapist, how do you deal with these racial issues or things of oppression in your work with clients?
Hmm.
How do you approach these things with a lot of humility and openness to engage. That's the part that I really like that you're talking about, Em. It's like, how do we engage in these things that we see in these stories?
Mm-hmm.
The good, and the bad, right? Or the
Mm-hmm.
biases, because that is life itself. You're not going to escape that.
Totally. What are some of the highlights? You've taught this class a couple of times now, right? The Harry
Yeah,
Potter class.
yeah.
Um, what are some of the highlights of the class? Like some of the things that in the couple of times that you've taught it that you really have really loved, something with the students, conversations that you've had.
Well, always a big winner is talking about Patronuses. Um, and the Patronus, it's funny talking about it because I know you don't know a whole lot, but you've read a little bit of Harry Potter, right? I
Yeah,
think you've
yeah,
read like
a
three of the
couple.
books.
Yeah.
So Patronus is this force that you bring up to fight, dementors, right? Which is like deep depression, the darkness. So you bring up this cast this spell and bring up a Patronus, which I've just have been endlessly fascinated with what a Patronus really means, because when you read all the books, it is something connected to your heart, to your past
Mm.
or future love, right? So Harry's is a stag, which represents his father who could turn himself into a stag. Um,
Oh,
you know, Snape had a Patronus and he turned his Patronus into a doe that represented Harry's mother, who was his lifelong love. So there's something about the Patronus, about it being something that represents some deep love that sustains you in some way. And I really love that. So we have you know, I have people draw their Patronus and then take the seed of then we do a little gestalt and then take the seed of the Patronus and see what that Patronus has to say to them. So it's an exercise. It's an exercise doing intervention. So you get to draw. So you get to use your, some art, and then you get to take the seed of your Patronus and have a dialogue with it, and see what you can learn from this part of you.
I'm just dying. I love this so much. This is such a cool exercise.
So that's one, and then the other one that surprised me, that was just an absolute delight, is the case conceptualizations. So I have everyone pick any character, which there's hundreds of characters in the book, any character that they want, and to do a full-on case conceptualization of that character using slides and using as much creativity as you can. And I was just blown away of that, just all the creativity. And then of course it's using all the psychological language, and
Mm,
then what people would actually do to help the character. What would be your plan to
mhm,
help somebody who's had a lot of trauma and lost their parents and have seen their uncle die, and all this stuff. What would you actually do with somebody? And some people taken on really hard characters like Voldemort, who's obviously a psychopath, a sociopath, and same with Bellatrix. And being in therapy with, like, how would you work with somebody who had some of those traits? So, and then just like the pictures and how they set it up in their slides, I was just really delighted.
if this is too personal a question, you don't have to answer it, but what is your Patronus?
My Patronus, it's a wolf bear.
Huh?
Um, it was originally a wolf bear, and then it has changed into an otter. So I've changed my Patronus based really on my partner, but for a long time it was a wolf bear. Kind
Mm.
of this, I love dogs. I'm often people say, hey, I have a lot of bear qualities, being kind of a mama bear type person. So it was a wolf bear for a long time, and then the last few years it has turned into an otter. So when I did this exercise, I drew an otter,
Mm.
and so it really represents this, um, the love I have for my partner. Um, so yeah, that's my
And
answer though.
water energy, but also building. I'm thinking about like what do otters do?
Otters are
Swimming.
really cute.
They're
you
really
know,
cute.
they're really cute. But they're also very otters are, someone's gonna kill me for saying this. I think they're related to badgers in some way. I think they're the
Uh-huh.
same somewhat connected, but they're also, people call them the cat, I don't know, kitty cats of the ocean, because they're constantly grooming. They're grooming. They're young. They're just. I think they're very fastidious in a lot of ways. But yeah.
That's great. Okay, and if you were a student in your class, what character would you pick to do your case conceptualization for your final project?
Well, I've done one before because I also teach
Oh,
advanced Gestalt through a Gestalt lens, right? So I did a case conceptualization on Harry, just so that I,
oh
could
my
use it
God.
as an example.
That's a
Um,
big character to take on. Like, what a choice you made.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't a super long. It was like I'm trying to find it really quick here, um, to show an example
Mm-hmm.
of how to do one of these, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
let me see if I can. So Klein is a 23-year-old Caucasian, cis heterosexual male. His family is from Scotland, and both his parents were killed when he was 1 year old. He lived in an abusive situation with his aunt and uncle until the age of 17. He has no contact with his aunt and uncle currently, but has periodic contact with his cousin Dudley, who he talks to once or twice a year. Klein has a significant level of grief and trauma from violent loss of parents, godfather, and headmaster, all due to violence. Klein even had their beloved pet owl killed. Klein is happily married and has 2 sons and a daughter. Klein's presenting problem is that he's feeling stuck in his life and does not always get along with people who do not see him as magical. I have seen this client for 12 sessions. So
I love it.
that's the intro to this, and then I'll just skip to I think, like, the plan. We will continue to work on expanding client's choices, especially how he wants to address his trauma.
Mm.
So that's just skipping to the end. So that
Mm.
was fun to do. And I just presented it to the class without telling them it was Harry. As soon as I wrote Dudley, though, people were like, hmm. But some people were like, oh my God, this person has been through so much. They've lost their parents. And it's kind of funny. But what would you do with somebody who thought they were magical? That's just like,
Yeah, that's a great question. And then like would you bring in the magic? Like would you join the metaphor? Like Eduardo Duran says, would you join the metaphor? Or would you be like, are you what is happening? You're doing
delusional.
spells? Say what? Okay, that's interesting. That's cool. Do some spells. Be witchy. Let's do it. I don't That's what I love about like the kind of therapy I think that you and I are open to is just like whatever it is, bring it in and then we'll play with it and see what works and see what matters, right? It
Well, it's the same with teaching, right? At
hmm
CIS, we
Yeah.
talk about this word integral that comes from, I think it's Pali or maybe Hindu Purna, right? Which means the whole of the body, mind, spirit, the world, the universe, the transpersonal. So why wouldn't we bring in pop culture to our teaching as well?
Mm.
Um, I taught law and ethics, as you know. I think I told you this story already, but second to last semester, and I brought in Star Trek. And so, because law and ethics honestly can be, dry as toast. It's not the
Mm.
most exciting topic to teach people. People just like are asleep with their eyes open when you teach this
Totally.
class. So
Yeah.
how do I not have them fall? So one of the very first classes, we were talking about morals and values. It's not just learning about the rules of law and ethics as a therapist. It's tricky. It's a slippery slope.
Hmm.
So I brought in the movie, Star Trek movie, that I think Into Darkness one, the second one of um, the reboot of Star Trek. I'm blanking on the guy's name who produced them. I could just see his bad robot thing, but I can't remember his name. So that second movie, the first 45 minutes is just a great example of all these moral and ethical decisions that the captain and Spock make. It's really, a great thing to show. And people were engaged.
Mm.
They're like,
Yeah.
would you make these same decisions? Do you see why some of these decisions were made? Because they have these rules in Star Trek, the Prime Directive, and they're breaking it left and right in that first 45 minutes. So, you know, people really loved that. They were like,
Hmm.
wow, we're watching Star Trek for like law and ethics, but also getting like with a point of like that, morals and values, they're not just black and white.
Yeah.
So that, whatever I believe, and I know you do this too, whatever we can use to convey concepts, and why not have some fun with it? Why does
Totally.
psychotherapy need to be bone crushingly painful? It doesn't need to be.
Yes.
It doesn't need
Yes.
to be.
it's alive and it's exciting, and I think in my Twin Peaks class, and I love that example you gave about Star Trek. Thank you for that. In my Twin Peaks class, we talk about archetypes and we talk about, um, how different elements and dimensions show up in the show. And we go into these magical, ethereal places and when talking about the lodges and duality um and leaning into it, not just as an afterthought, but like having it be the primary thing. Um, I I read a dream from Laura Palmer's diary, and then we analyze it from a Jungian analysis and then from a more traditional psychodynamic Freudian analysis, which is really cool. And also I have them do case conceptualizations at the end of class, like with your class, same thing. And I love what people come up with. I mean, I've had a student who one of the characters in the show, Audrey, is does a dance a lot. She kind of does a dance in a couple of different scenes in the show. And part of his intervention and working with her and supporting her healing was that he would support her with dancing. So just really thinking about like what outside of traditional talk therapy could be needed, could be helpful, right? Like doing nature walks with clients, um, going swimming with clients. I mean, just like whatever is needed is there. And so it's really cool to think about it in the context of the characters for the show. What would be helpful for them? It's my favorite class to teach. Like it really is. And if I was doing a case conceptualization, if I was in the class and I was doing it, I would want to do it on Teresa Banks, who and Teresa Banks, who we don't see much. We see her a little bit in Fire Walk with Me in The Missing Pieces, but I have a really she and Blackie actually are some of my favorite characters, and I'm going to be talking about Teresa Banks on my friend's podcast soon, so I'll get to say more about her there. But I just find there's so many fascinating female identified characters in the landscape and in the world of David Lynch that are complex and interesting, and on the surface seem like archetypal sort of um, damsels in distress, but are actually strong, powerful, fierce
Mm.
women. And that's a duality that's interesting for me in that world. So anyway, that was just it came to my mind when we were talking about the classes. Um, okay, if a Harry Potter character was going to have a tattoo, what character would have the tattoo and what would the tattoo be?
Well, I think one of the obvious ones, because it's discussed in the I think in the movies and in the books, is that does Harry have um, a tattoo on his chest or not?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I would imagine that he would get, a dragon tattoo on his chest.
Nice.
Um, um, Hornback tattoo would be to me logical that he would get some from all the scars and all the things that he's been through. I think getting a tattoo seems to be appropriate for Harry to have. Now, I don't know if he wants to have, a dragon tattoo, but I think it's appropriate because I feel like, why do we get tattoos to begin with? They symbolize all kinds of things, turning points in people's lives. Often I feel that tattooing is really sacred. It's a
Yes.
sacred ritual act. It's
Thank you.
so why wouldn't he have a dragon um, on his chest? I
What
want
Harry
to
Potter? What'd you
Sorry,
say?
can I interrupt you? I want
Yes.
to go back to Star Trek. I want to give credit to what I'm talking about. It's
Oh,
J.J.
sure.
Abrams. My mind's going a little blank today. J.J. Abrams, and the movie is Into Darkness. It's the second of the reboot.
Got it. Cool. Thank you for that. What Harry Potter tattoo would you want to have?
Ooh, probably Fox, probably the Phoenix. I
Mm.
mean, I wouldn't mind getting Hedwig, but Hedwig is all white, so that doesn't work really well as a tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a white tattoo before, and they fade. But Fox the Phoenix would be an awesome tattoo to get because it's about rebirth. The fox represents so much. The phoenix as a symbol in the Harry Potter's stories is just throughout. There's the Order of the Phoenix, which is this rebellion group that fights Voldemort. The Phoenix song is to be soothing and encouraging. It shows up
Mm-hmm.
so many times in Harry's story when he is um, fighting Voldemort or grieving, and what it does to his heart to hear Phoenix song. So I think a phoenix, surely as a symbol of rebirth, and courage again would be a logical tattoo for me to get.
Yeah,
Just,
that's a good
yeah,
one. That's a really good answer. What tattoos do you have now? Any that you want to share? I know you've got about three or four, I think.
I have four. Yeah.
Hmm.
The first tattoo I got was a very traditional 1980s tattoo of a unicorn with like Pegasus with a unicorn horn. So I call it a unipeg because it
Unibag.
had to. And it has a flaming star coming at it. And I really wanted to represent, I really have this ideal. I'm like what I call a realistic idealist. Um, I'm a glass half full person. I am pretty idealistic at times, but I wanted, and so of course, this fantasy creature being a unipeg, I wanted to show it like fighting off something that could destroy it, literally, right? That there's always hope in the face of darkness, in the face of obstacle. So I really wanted that tattoo to represent, this fantasy, magical creature, but
Mm,
also, this little bit of me around. Yes, I'm idealistic, but I can be very realistic and practical in my idealism. So
mhm.
so that was the first tattoo, and I got it at just a plug. I think it's still around, Ricky's Tattoo in Alameda, which was a famous tattoo parlor in Alameda for
Cool.
sailors, because in Alameda used to be a naval base. So that was, the place to get a tattoo back in the 80s. So I have that tattoo, which is very faded at this point. I need to probably put a phoenix over it.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and then I have a Celtic band. It's called Oh Plenty, and it comes from a ring that I had, that I still have actually. And it's a beautiful Celtic weave that means plenty of love, Oh Plenty.
Mm, mm,
And in the middle of it is the Celtic Trinity. So kind of representing some spirituality there. So it's multicolored. I've had it highlighted. I had got this one in Lake Tahoe from this woman who claimed that she was the first lady of tattoo. And she did a lot of tattoos for, like, cosmetics for eyebrows
oh
and
yeah. Hmm.
I can't imagine getting a tattoo on your eyelid, but oh my God. Some people would do it. So I always just remember her because when she did this, she would look and she goes, "It's perfect, perfect." But it's a band, it's a warrior band, so it goes around my right arm and all the
Mm.
way around my right arm. I felt very strongly that it had to go all the way around, and that we were just talking about this before we started the podcast. That underside of your arm is so tender.
Oh, it's a spicy, spicy place. Hmm.
Yeah. So having this done, I think 3 times colorized, I'm just like, oh, it still hurts on the underside.
It's it's badass. Yeah.
And the last tattoos I've gotten fairly just a few years ago.
Hmm.
Around one of them is a tribute tattoo to my parents, and it's on my left arm. It's just their initials, MLB, and um, I just wanted to represent them. They've been such a big part of my life. People sometimes think I'm talking about Major League Baseball, but no, it's about my parents. And then I have an ohm symbol of an ohm on my right arm that matches the left arm, so that they look a little bit. So it's in the same style. Um, so those are, I know that you and I have talked about getting a tattoo at some point. Um, yeah,
Yeah, let's do it.
yeah.
We need it. We need to do it. We'll do it. Um, okay, and then finally, tell us about whether your story about seeing Twin Peaks or not Twin Peaks, and what you know about Twin Peaks, since this is the Twin Peaks Tattoo podcast.
I know. I appreciate you having me on as
So
this
great.
outlier.
It's so fun.
I started watching Twin Peaks a long time ago, and when I think it first came out, and then I don't know why I didn't finish watching it. And then I've tried to watch it because you're into it, and so I thought, why is Emily nuts about this? And so I try to start to watch it, and I just couldn't get into it. I don't know why. So, I am interested in it because I am, ancillary. I've heard so much from you, and I've listened to the podcast, and I've
Cool.
loved listening to the podcast.
Oh,
So I'm like,
nice.
well, I really have to, understand what that cherry pie means and all the different, and you have some awesome, Twin Peaks tattoo, the bird and the gambling coin. And it's like, wow, what is this thing that so
What's
many people
happening?
are passionate about? I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's about equal amount of passion for Harry Potter as Twin Peaks. So, um, yeah, so I have to get around to definitely, and I have to watch it with you, because then you can
Yeah.
translate some things for me,
Oh,
because you're.
totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I love watching it with people. And I did when I was younger, I did, and I would make these, maybe you heard, I talked about it on another podcast, but I made this like trifold and like with all of the characters and how they related to each other, and I would like show it to people just because like there's so many different characters, and right at the
Oh,
beginning it's kind
wow.
of hard to follow. So but I can do that now. Of course, now that's digital, but back in the day when I was trying to get people to watch Twin Peaks, it didn't exist, or at least I didn't know that it existed. This was like early internet-ish time. um AOL dial-up style. So anyway, now I can be there and I can help you, and we can, yeah, connect the character dots, and it's going to be really cute. That is something that we're going to do for sure. Um,
Awesome.
Anything else that you want to share before we wrap up? This is amazing.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate being on the show and talking about these things that I love around teaching and um, pop culture and Harry Potter and art and why it's so important, and tattoos, why tattoos are important.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that. I mean, it was very radical for me to get a tattoo, and I think I'm still the only person in my family who has a tattoo. I was scared to death to get that first tattoo, and my mother finally, I was able to hike, because on my back, that unicorn, that unipeg was on my back, so I could hide it
You
for a
could
long
hide
time.
it. Uh-huh.
Then we went swimming, and then I kind of told her, said, "Hey, I got this tattoo," and her first thing is like, why would you put that on your back? You can't see it. It's like, why would you do such a thing? You can't even see this tattoo you put on your back. What's the matter with you? I'm like, yeah, mom, I just was a little afraid you might freak out about it. And even when I got my tribute tattoo, my family was like, I don't think mom and dad would like that you did that, but that's okay. I want to pay honor to them any way
Mm-hmm.
I can, and so, and they've been very, I mean, at times it's been tough for them, but they were very supportive of me just being my own person, even though
Mm-hmm.
at times they didn't understand it at all, being queer and whatnots. But I think wherever they are now, they're okay with the tattoo. But yeah, so I just really love that you're doing this show and that I'm on it. I always wanted to be on it, and I thought, oh my God,
Oh.
I have to watch Twin Peaks to be on the podcast. But you found a way, and that's just you. You always find really great ways
Aw.
to do art. And that's one of the things I love so much about
Aw.
you. So thank you for
Aw,
having me on
thank
the
you.
show.
Yeah, it's so fun, and I love thinking about tattoos as ways we reclaim our bodies and adorn our bodies and take care of ourselves and have meaningful things, and also not so meaningful things, like I have tattoos that are like that might mean something to me but are sort of random as hell, like tacos in a mailbox, based on a sketch a sketch from The State, which is my favorite sketch comedy troupe. But like, anyway, I love those conversations, and this is a great episode because there's such great crossover in Star Trek and Harry Potter and Twin Peaks. I know there are a lot of folks who know a lot about those things in the community and will be excited to hear about that. And you have to teach me more about those things. I mean, I feel like I know more about Harry Potter than I did before we got close as friends. But certainly the world of Star Trek is still just this, aside from Will Wheaton being cute, like I know nothing. And so
Yeah, I adore Will Wheaton.
you have to teach me things.
Well, now Star Trek is becoming a huge franchise with Strange New Worlds and Picard and Discovery. And so that's a whole other podcast just talking about those characters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been great, as heard me talk about Strange New Worlds, did a musical that I am just over the moon about and have downloaded on my phone. I'm just listening to it.
Everyone's talking about it.
It has
Yeah.
made me so happy. It has given me pure joy, this musical. And so, yeah, so, live long and prosper, Emily. Ellie.
Oh, thanks so much. Yes, live long and prosper. And I'll link some of the um things we've talked about in the show notes. Any way people can find you? Do you have a website or Insta or something you want to plug?
I have annabenassi.com. I just got it redone, so it's
Oh.
rebooting. So
Oh.
yeah, you can find me there. Yeah, if you need psychotherapy or want to send me a question to geek out about any of these things, or art, or how do I incorporate art into therapy, I'm also, I'm working, as I'm working on a book. I'm working on a memoir. I'm getting my MFA at CIIS. And so that's hopefully going to come out 2025, maybe. Hopefully we'll get a final version of the memoir, because I have lots of stories to tell I think people might find interesting to read.
And the what I've read of the memoir, and thank you for always sharing it with me, is fantastic. And the stories are really important and will resonate with a lot of people. So I'm looking forward to that coming out as well, for sure. I also have a book coming out, I should say. Hey,
Same
since we're
you.
talking, oh my gosh, here we go. I have a book coming out next September 2024. It's totally topical to what we've been talking about. It's called Comfort Sequels: The Psychology of Movie Sequels from the 80s and 90s. And it's me, and it's part memoir and part psychological analysis of movies that were movie sequels from the 80s and 90s that I found really comforting as a kid growing up. So movies like Grease 2, My Girl 2, Gremlins 2, The Neverending Story 2, Dream a Little Dream 2, which is a movie with Corey Haim and Corey Feldman that no one ever saw, went straight to HBO. So Mannequin 2, On the Move, these types of things. And I've got some great celebrity interviews. Christine Ebersol, the cool writer himself, Maxwell Caulfield. I actually have 3 T-Birds from Grease 2 that I've been able to interview, which is dope. So anyway, I'll also link that in the show notes. You can pre-order your copy now from FMP Press, and I am really excited about it too. Look at us writing memoirs and doing psychological
No,
stuff and being
that's
cute.
crazy. It's crazy. And I know we're each other's biggest fan, and I've been honored to read some of the chapters of that book, and it's amazing. People, you have run, don't walk to order your book.
Aww,
So order M's book because
thank you.
it's a delight. And it's what you like to call a sneaky memoir, which is its own genre, I think, now that you're creating. It's like, I'm talking about these sequels and blah, 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 but then you get to learn about M's life and how they helped him. And I just, it's a delight. So people are in for a treat with that book.
Thank you so much. This is just joyful. And yeah, thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Twin Peaks Tattoo Podcast. Each episode is produced by me, Emily Marinelli. Sound design and theme music by Dr. Animal Proof Rock. For more information on today's episode, go to my website, www.twinpeakstattoopodcast.com.